Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me here this morning at the Southcrest Recreation Center. I'm pleased to be joined by City Council President Sean Elo Rivera, City Council Member Joe LaCava, who is also the chair of our City Council's Environment Committee, our Director of Sustainability and Mobility, the City's Sustainability and Mobility Department, Alyssa Muto is here, as well as our Chief Race and Equity Officer, Kim Desmond, and a number of other illustrious San Diego leaders. Thank you all so much for joining me this morning. You may be wondering why we're at a rec center this morning when talking about climate action investments in our proposed city budget. It's because the Southcrest Recreation Center that you see behind me will be the first of 8 city facilities to be upgraded with a solar microgrid with support from the California Energy Commission. That means that this facility will have its own self-contained power system with on-site renewable energy generation and storage to provide power even after the sun goes down. Microgrid projects like this one are not just important for this facility, but have larger community benefits. They include providing backup power for the community in the event of a power shutoff, increased emergency capability for neighborhood services, reduced greenhouse gas emissions. They provide access to EV charging stations, and this one will save the city $6 million in energy costs over the next 25 years. We're deploying 8 of these microgrids throughout the city in partnership with Gridscape, one of the largest manufacturers and providers of solar microgrids and EV charging systems in California. Alok, a partner here at Gridscape, is with us this morning. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate having you here. This project is a perfect illustration of the kind of work that was being done to make sure that in the coming years we can meet our climate goals and decarbonize city-owned facilities. With my Ready to Rebuild proposed city budget, we're including $525,000 to help start preparing to remove carbon from city facilities. At the heart of our climate action efforts is the city's updated climate action plan, which is focused on aggressively reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We released the draft of this CAP update back in November, and it commits to the city to achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2035. It's certainly an ambitious target, but one that we simply cannot afford to put off. Since the release of the draft CAP, we have received extensive public feedback, developed an analysis of staffing needs, drafted consistency regulations for new development, and we've begun early work on a follow-up implementation steps as laid out in the CAP audit. Although the 2015 CAP was groundbreaking when it was introduced, the city has not always dedicated the resources needed to faithfully implement it, and we're changing that with this budget. Overall, my Ready to Rebuild budget dedicates more than $32.9 million to implement the strategies in the CAP update, which will help us reach our net zero goal by the year 2035. You heard that right. We are putting the resources behind this plan to deliver the actions that we've promised. Another critical piece of the puzzle is our Climate Equity Fund, which allocates resources to help historically underserved communities respond to the impacts of climate change. I'd like to thank the city's Sustainability and Mobility Department under Alyssa Muto's leadership, as well as our Department of Race and Equity led by Kim Desmond, for all of their collaborative work on the Climate Equity Fund criteria and project list. Our team has designed equity into the decision-making process to guide the selection of each project, making our best effort to address environmental injustice and eliminate disparities that we see in our neighborhoods. Thanks to the efforts and the tireless advocacy of community advocates, many of whom are with me here today, my revised budget allots $7.4 million for climate equity projects. These include streetlight installations in Council Districts 4, 7, and 8 for a total of $2 million, improvements to Chicano Park and Barrio Logan and Willie Henderson Sports Complex in Mountain View for a total of $4.6 million, and traffic calming measures in Choice View and in Linda Vista for a total of $800,000. My budget also includes new funding for the Sustainability and Mobility Department, affectionately known as SUMO, that will allow for more staff to help us accomplish our ambitious goals. And here's the thing. San Diego's public health, public safety, as well as our quality of life depends on us addressing climate change. We can't shy away from this reality. We have to lean into it and act responsibly. The cost of inaction is enormous, and the time to build these investments is now. And that's why this Ready to Rebuild budget does precisely that. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce a longtime climate activist It's 8 a.m., everybody. A longtime climate advocate, as well as the council president and the representative for the council district we're in, Council President Sean Elo Rivera. Council President. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to District 9. Welcome to Southcrest, a neighborhood of incredible potential and a great example of what of some environmental injustice that has occurred in the past. Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership on climate and the environment. It's been very important. Since entering office, the mayor's team has hit the ground running, engaging the community and advancing sustainability. The updated climate action plan, climate resilient SD, and the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget are culminations of the mayor and his staff's hard work. For years, advocates have called on the city to invest resources in and meaningfully implement the CAP to advance toward our climate action goals. At first, those advocates were ignored. Then administrations and councils of the past paid them lip service about equality and One San Diego, while ignoring the real inequities and injustices that were being perpetuated. Fortunately now, this mayor and my colleagues on the city council are listening and are putting the city's money where our mouths are. These investments are particularly important for the Southcrest community and other neighborhoods in District 9. For example, the fiscal year 2023 budget proposes to fund the Southcrest Green Infrastructure Project. This important project includes construction and installation of green infrastructure improvements, which collects and filters stormwater before it enters a storm drain system. This might seem minor or insignificant to the average member of the public, but for decades, Southcrest has battled seasonal flooding due to a lack of adequate stormwater infrastructure, to speak nothing of the many harmful substances we let wash into our waterways. In fact, I could take you just a couple minutes from here to specific houses that could point every time it rains to the places where it will flood, the way that their properties are threatened. And for years, the city has ignored needing to address that. That stops now. This project will not only address stormwater issues in the immediate vicinity, but it will also serve as an example of using natural solutions to implement our city's climate action plan. I'd also like to highlight the proposed investments in Willie Henderson Sports Complex, which the mayor mentioned. Through the Climate Equity Fund, almost $4 million will be committed to a crucial community space and recreational facility for a predominantly low-income area. Again, that is an area that the community has called on for years to give it proper investment. It's a cherished community space that the city allowed to fall into disrepair. Again, through intentional decisions, that stops now. For decades, the city has underinvested in recreational spaces south of the 8, and the proposed budget begins to rectify those injustices. It's not a coincidence that we're discussing these projects here in Southcrest. Diverse and frontline communities bear the brunt of climate change, but generations of underinvestment and disinvestment have resulted in communities like this one having the least resources to mitigate and adapt to the impacts of climate change. Much the same is true around the world. We can talk about the dollars and cents of projects all day, but ultimately budgets are about people, and we have a moral imperative to take all necessary steps to overcome the climate crisis, especially when we know that decisions of the past have left the people of today most vulnerable to its impacts. We cannot waste any more time. Our people need resources now to withstand the impacts of climate change that we're already experiencing and to mitigate the worst impacts of that change. I'll also say this is a matter of rebuilding trust. About a week and a half ago, my colleague, Council President Pro Tem Montgomery Stepp, and I were in Mountain View with Mr. Michelle, who's back there. And we were talking about the budget. And what we know is that we rebuild trust through action, because the folks in this neighborhood and the neighborhoods around this have been told that things are going to get fixed for a long time and nothing's happened. So the action first by way of the budget and then by getting the work done is how we begin to show the folks in this community that we love them, we care about them, and we're not just talking anymore. All that being said, I want to underscore the CAP update and the fiscal year 23 budget are not finalized just yet. As Council President, we continue to welcome stakeholders and the public to provide your feedback when that final decision is brought to the Council next month. So please speak up, use your voices. Whether you're mad at us or not, we want to hear from you, right, Mr. Michelle? He knows that. With that, again, I'd like to thank the mayor and welcome Councilmember LaCava, the chair of the City Council's Environment Committee, and perhaps even more important than that, a true ally in recognizing the disparities of the past and being willing to take action to address those. Councilmember LaCava, come on up.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Mayor Gloria, for bringing us together to speak about the climate priorities you've included in the FY 2023 budget. I'm grateful because we must act now on climate. And as chair of the Environment Committee and as a civil engineer, I'm going to drill down just a little deeper on the comments that the mayor has said. I say that we must act on climate because I believe in science. We all believe in science, this mayor and this council. Empirical evidence tells us we must respond urgently to protect future generations from the devastating impacts of climate change. It is clear that Mayor Gloria and my council colleagues share this view, as the budget discussions have been dominated by requests for immediate, tangible investments on climate. As Council President Elo Rivera said, it's not about words, it's about action. And most importantly, and the reason we're here in this location, is investments first in our most vulnerable communities. The mayor's budget will advance the city's most ambitious climate projects. It will continue the largest construction project in city history with phases 1 and 2 of Pure Water, bringing us one step closer to locally producing over 50% of our water needs. There's a reason that state mandates for water conservation did not apply to San Diego. We are on a schedule to be resilient. Next, we will expand staff and equipment to allow every resident and business to recycle their organic waste. And we will invest in mobility options and develop an electric vehicle network that is equitable, convenient, and innovative. Finally, the budget ensures the city continues service with 100% renewable electricity provided by San Diego Community Power, continues the ongoing work to convert city buildings to all electric, and eventually electrifies our built environment. These investments set the stage for an ambitious update to our climate action plan, and most critical, will allow us to implement that plan with the urgency and precision necessary to protect all San Diegans. Acting on climate is not limited just to line items on the budget, as you've heard. Every action before the city is now measured against the goals of our climate action plan. This new measurement allows the mayor, the city council, and the public to place a new and critical lens on the city's work. It is this comprehensive approach to climate action that I track as chair of the Environment Committee, and we all remain committed to build on this budget to deliver the full and timely implementation of our climate action plan. I appreciate the mayor's invite to speak in front of you today, and now I would like to introduce Alyssa Muto, Director of the City's Sustainability and Mobility Department. Alyssa?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council President, Councilmember LaCava. So the Sustainability and Mobility Department really appreciate the budgetary commitments made in the fiscal year 23 budget. And we recognize the responsibility that comes with this funding to move the city forward with real action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the city and to lead the way for others to take the steps needed to address the climate crisis. I want to thank our team in the Sustainability and Mobility Department for the amazing and innovative, for the amazing and innovative work that they do every day for this city. With the proposed budget allocation for the addition of 6 new staff specifically focused on the implementation of the Climate Action Plan, it will allow us to more fully and comprehensively collaborate within our department as well as across the city to ensure we're implementing the Climate Action Plan. But over the last year, our team has been busy with a number of initiatives to continue to implement the existing CAP and in anticipation of what is needed. Starting with in June, we will be bringing forward the updated Climate Action Plan for consideration by the City Council, proposing not only the net zero 2035 target, but over 180 actions that are necessary for the city to implement to reach the goal. Centered around equity and rooted in deep engagement through partnerships and listening, this update to the Climate Action Plan will be transformational throughout the city and touch every aspect of our public services and operations. And we have a lot more waiting in the wings. Shortly after the CAP adoption, we will be bringing forward our municipal energy implementation plan and supporting policies to make sure our own city buildings, through regular maintenance and ongoing grant funding, are made more resilient, efficient, and electrified with 100% renewable power from San Diego Community Power. A great example of the type of work we will be doing includes projects like this one that will be breaking ground this summer, of a microgrid for the South Crest Recreation Center, making it a more resilient and sustainable neighborhood facility. Our team will also continue to work on the Climate Action Plan implementation plan to put clear timeframes, identify partners, and outline budgets and funding opportunities needed for the successful implementation of the CAP. This plan will be an important resource document for years to come to make informed decisions on budgets and staffing and to be held accountable for the commitments laid out within this policy. We have been working closely within the city and regionally to deploy EV charging infrastructure across all of our communities and to convert our own fleet to zero emissions vehicles. This is being done in parallel with our mobility action plan that will build on recent sustainable land use and mobility efforts such as the regional plan, community plan updates, complete communities, and policies such as parking reform. In this plan, we will make sure we are providing mobility options in alignment with our mode share goals that can provide access and mobility for all residents that is efficient, improves safety, equitable, and sustainable. This budget includes important funding to continue to address mobile source emissions through the purchase of new zero-emission vehicle chargers for our city staff and communities, and the continued funding of the Mobility Master Plan. Thank you again to the Mayor for providing the resources to expand our team and to work across the city and our departments to meet these goals. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Love to see her and her team work. They do great work for the city. Again, I'd like to just close by thanking all of you for being here today to highlight these key investments to protect our environment and to take action against climate change. I'd like to thank the members of the City Council who are with us today, as well as for their thoughtful work and discussion over the last month as they've reviewed the proposed budget and for the work they'll do in the following month as they work towards final adoption. I also, again, want to thank Gridscape and some of our other partners in this work, members of our Equity Stakeholder Working Group, members of our CAP Review Committee, past and present members of city boards, including the Sustainable Energy Advisory Board, the Community Forestry Advisory Board, the Mobility Board, and all the volunteers that are dedicated to leaving our city better than they found it. We have a lot of citizen participation in our sustainability efforts, and always a general reminder to the public, if this is your thing, look into serving on a board or commission. There are multiple that work on this issue. And of course, all of our external community advocates, nonprofit partners, and folks in the business community, all of whom understand that this issue of climate and environmental action are all our collective responsibility. And finally, I would just express again my appreciation to city staff. We have a number who are here today. It's not just the sustainability department, the sustainability and mobility department. It's the environmental services department, capital improvements department, development services planning department, San Diego Police Department, who is here, where we have proudly the largest fleet of hybrid police cars in the country. Every city department, every city employee is a part of our climate action. All of us are focused on making sure that we protect one of the things that makes us so remarkable as a region, which is our magnificent weather, our incredible quality of life. This is something worth fighting for, and that's why every department is focused on making sure that climate action is at the center of a lot of the work that we do. This is our climate, and this is our future. And it's up to all of us to do the hard work. And I'm inspired by every single person here, as well as the many behind the scenes who do this work to leave this community better than we found it. With that said, we'll conclude. Happy to take questions one-on-one and for any individual interviews. And again, thank you for being here today. Let's get this budget adopted. Let's make sure we invest in our climate and our future. Thank you.